Welcome to Behind the Podium, Unveiling the Coach. Problem solvers have problems too. So here at Behind the Podium, I, Jared Cohen, and my co-host Alexander Ellis discuss the struggles, philosophies, demands, and practices of the coach, or said more broadly, health and wellness practitioner. To provide quality coaching is to enhance someone's life in an everlasting and unfolding way. This is not easy and requires a lot of due diligence and self-mastery on the part of the coach to be able to perform. So without further ado, join us as we dig deeper into the depths of the coach's mind. Welcome back, or welcome to Behind the Podium, Unveiling the Coach. I am Jared Cohen. Joined with me is my partner in crime,
Alexander Ellis.
And today we are going behind the podium with Sam Issac Smith, a man of many trades. He is a lawyer, a water skier, a water ski instructor, a boat driver, a guitar player, a singer, a CrossFit competitor and coach. And most recently, Sam is working for Google Ventures, i.e. YouTube. And we're going to talk to Sam today about his current experience being a coach, as well as his most recent endeavor getting to attend Tony Robbins's Unleash the Power Within. So without further ado, Sam, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. That was quite the intro, quite far-reaching.
Did I say that right? Google Ventures?
Yes. Yeah, so I actually work for a firm called Vaco, and Vaco is a managed services firm. So what we do is provide solutions for problems that large companies have. And so we were brought in by YouTube and Google to basically provide teams to solve problems. So I manage about 55 people here at YouTube that solve sort of all the day-to-day problems in the legal operations department. So when you file a copyright complaint or you file a defamation complaint or something like that, I manage the people that process those complaints.
Wow.
So you're the reason we can't have copyrighted music on our videos.
I won't go so far to say that I'm the reason that it goes up on YouTube. Someone I know probably has a part in taking it down.
Yeah.
Well, aside from that, we are all very grateful to YouTube. It has changed the course of our, well, at least my media experience. It's the most powerful, beneficial, inspirational vice, and also the most distracting, unproductive wormhole vice in my life. So, it just comes back to me to manage my time better. But nonetheless, thank you.
It's a fascinating platform. Yeah, it's really cool platform to be involved in. You think about two of the things that I know, Jared, both you and I are passionate about, CrossFit and music. If you want to learn a lot about either of those things, where else would you go but YouTube? And all the information that's been created in the past decade or so is up there. You can really learn an incredible amount really quickly.
Yeah, and including the fact that they've now. It seems like anything is there, from years prior. So the opportunity for it kind of acts like a library of past, present, and even future information, the way in which it's now a platform for essentially releasing things before they exist in other formats because YouTube is so easily distributable.
So it's funny, I know we're going to talk about my experience at the Tony Robbins seminar. One of the things he brought up was that basically all the talks that he gave at the seminar are available on YouTube in one form or another. He said it's funny, you come to the seminar and you pay all this money to have this experience with me, but you really could just have it on YouTube. Now you miss, of course, a lot of the really inspirational and powerful moments there, But even the knowledge, just the base level experience, can be had on the internet today.
Yeah.
Which sort of leads to like why even go to these seminars, and that's sort of what has been interesting to learn over the past few weeks.
Ooh, that is key. What has been your reflection on that regarding what you feel like is the intangible of that experience that could not be replicated by just consuming the information in your home?
Yeah. So one thing that Tony Robbins is really big on is full immersion. Engaging experience entirely and sort of giving it your full self. And what the seminars are, what Unleash the Power Within is it's 4 days and it's 14 plus hours a day. And so you're exhausted, frankly. But that's sort of all you are able to focus on, right? Like you put your phone in your bag, you're not checking your work emails, and you're in this environment where everyone around you is also focused on the same thing for this long of a period of time every day. And that full immersion with like-minded individuals who are in varying degrees interested in the same thing you are is what's exceptionally powerful. Not everyone's there for the same reasons, right? Not everyone has the same sort of degree of buy-in, but by stepping into a room for 14 hours a day, 4 days in a row, you got to have some sort of buy-in, and that really does help.
Yeah, totally. And, the group mindset is so powerful. And just like you're saying, being in a room with people who are, same focus. And then also when you think of how you consume videos on your own time, like I can tell you how many videos I've watched while brushing my teeth and washing my face. Like you're not fully present. And so when you attend a seminar, especially one like Tony Robbins, you have to be all in or it must be miserable.
Yeah, so there were 10,500 people at the event that I attended in the SAP Center in San Jose. And every day the seats were full. Like every day, at the very beginning, people like sort of trickled in, but by the middle of the day, like the entire center was full. And all these people were there buying into the same thing. You're not going to get that experience at home at your desk. And that's the sort of benefit of these kinds of seminars, really of any kind of seminar, right? Is when you go in and you show up and you sort of check your own personal baggage at the door, like I don't want to be here, like is someone dragged me here, this and that. You just decide like, hey, I'm here, I'm going to be a part of this. You're able to grow a lot from it because all the other people around you are growing too.
Mm-hmm. Did you watch the Netflix documentary? I think it's I'm Not Your Guru.
Yeah.
Did you do it before you went or after?
Yeah, so I actually watched it twice before I went and after I went.
Nice.
And it's a different program. So the Netflix documentary centers on Date with Destiny, which is a longer and more intense program, and also more expensive, if I remember correctly. But it's a really accurate reflection of who this guy appears to be, right? I don't know Tony Robbins personally, so I only know who he appears to be on stage in front of 10,000 people. But he's incredibly disciplined, and he truly believes in the work that he's doing. I think he gets a bad reputation as being like a snake oil salesman. In fact, like when I told some friends and some family members that I was going, they're like, "Oh, like really? That's a thing you're going to do?" And in fact, like he's an expert in creating change. That's all he is. He's an expert in creating change. And he's an expert. He's not like a psychologist. He's not there to help you figure out what's bothering you, or he's there to help you figure out what is holding you back from the change that you want to see. And after when I watched it again, I like sort of recognized some of the tricks, maybe the tools of the trade that he uses to sort of expose those areas. It was really fascinating to sort of look back and reflect on what I had seen in our seminar, and then what he was sort of replicating over and over with his other seminars.
The 14-hour days have always seemed like so extreme. And one thing where I'm kind of like on the fence of if I ever wanted to go. But having gone through it, would you want it changed or?
No. So I found the first 3 days to be fantastic. So the first 3 days were about sort of beginning to sort of figure out what would be challenging, what would be holding you back, like some beliefs you have about yourself. Then sort of like killing those beliefs and then creating new beliefs. The fourth day was about health and wellness. And I think that there's a lot of not great information out there about health and wellness. And I wasn't always on board with what he was saying on the fourth day. But I found the first 3 days to be totally worthwhile. And the amount of time you spent there were some exercises particularly like some visioning exercises where you thought they were 10 minutes and they were 2.5 hours.
Wow.
You were just like standing there or sitting there for like 2 hours, right? And you need to sort of lose sense of time. He doesn't really give meal breaks. He doesn't really give bathroom breaks. Like, you kind of just come and go as you want to come and go. You sort of like get lost in the experience. On the first day, they do this fire walk where you walk on hot coals.
Right. Oh, did you do it?
I did do it, yeah. We did that at like 2 a.m. I'd been there since 8 or 9 a.m. It was crazy. Now, like, I'm a bit of a nerd, and I had researched, the fire walk and the sort of like physiology of walking on fire, and it's like entirely humanly possible without getting into this like peak state that he has you get into. But like at 2 a.m, you're pretty freaked out, and there's fire everywhere, and there are like big drums, and people are chanting, and like you walk on 1,700, 1,800 degree coals for 10 feet. And it's this incredibly liberating thing. Now, whether it's because of your psychology that you're able to do it, or just because like human beings are physically possible of more than we think we're capable of, it's still incredibly liberating. And like you get off, and you're like, oh my god, like I just did that. That's insane.
Yeah. Now I would totally feel like, oh, I just walked on fire. I can do anything.
It's awesome. I was like super amped up, and then I had to go to sleep. Come on.
What is the prep for that though? Like, were there after effects of like your feet being burned at all? Or?
No. So the philosophy behind it is that when you're in a peak state, you can accomplish anything. So Tony spends a lot of time on the first day helping you figure out how to get into a peak state where you are like incredibly focused. You know what you need to achieve. You sort of are very aware of your body. You're able to like sprint through a wall. And that's sort of how you get yourself amped up to sort of step on fire.
Right.
Scientifically, like, why does it work? Because your feet aren't touching the fire for long enough at any point in time to burn.
Yeah.
You walk quickly. You walk even-footed.
Got it.
You step on wet grass beforehand to create a slight moisture barrier between your feet and the firewalk. I'm like totally ruining this firewalk.
No, this is important. This is behind the podium.
No more magic.
Yeah. We gotta go behind.
Seriously, you step on wet grass beforehand to get your feet like ready. So there's a moisture barrier. As soon as you get off on the other side, there's wet grass, and they spray your feet with water to make sure no coals stick to you. And still, like 1% of the people that do it will have some sort of burn or rash afterwards. I didn't. Like, I was totally fine. It felt hot. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Like, it felt like almost like cold hot when you're like the water coming out of the shower is like a little too hot, and you touch it for like a half second. That's what it felt like. But it's 4 seconds.
Right. Wow.
It's quick. Like, he'll try to walk even, and then you get off, and you're so amped up, like you're really screaming and getting psyched that you don't even realize what you're doing until it's over.
Fascinating.
It was really cool. Like, I gotta be honest, it was fascinating.
I know how to figure out how to set something up in my backyard.
Yeah, seriously.
But this idea of a peak state, since returning from the seminar, have you used that in?
I have. So it's funny. Like, before I went, I thought it was super hokey. I thought like I can get myself amped up for whatever situation I need to get amped up for. But there are probably two situations, separate situations where I found it super helpful. The first is in weightlifting and CrossFit, right? Like, not every day you feel like mentally strong enough to pick up a super heavy barbell. Jared is my CrossFit coach, and so there are days when Jared tells me to pick up a super heavy barbell, and I don't want to do so, right? And I have to get myself into the zone. And so Tony teaches you how to make your move. You sort of pick a move and a sound to do that sort of helps you get amped up. And I actually picked the sort of like woo noise that I make after I complete a heavy lift as my sound to get myself into a peak state. So I already know that it feels successful to me.
That's awesome.
And now I do it before I lift, right? And it gets me amped up, and like it gets those endorphins flowing, and I know what it feels like to succeed because that sound reminds me of success. So before lifting, I do it, but also before really stressful business meetings. I do. Like, I'll go outside, or like I'll be in my car on the way to work, and like I'll like, kind of fist pump and make my woo noise a couple times, and like I feel like I'm in the zone to step into the office and just crush. And again, like scientifically, not totally sure why it works, but it does remind me of the feelings of success and the feelings of elation that I feel after nailing something. And if you do it enough, it creates that pattern of success, right? Where I make this noise, I succeed. I make the noise. I get amped up, I succeed. And so you convince yourself that each time you just keep getting amped up and you're good to go. And so that was what we did to Walk on Fire. You got amped up, you made your move, you screamed yes a couple times, like you were going to do this, and then you walked across fire.
I'm like so inspired right now.
Yeah. You feel like you could like run through a brick wall.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I'm thinking about, like with animals, for example, and fear, they will outwardly shake, and that's one of the ways they can get rid of that fearful energy. And as humans, we are almost like embarrassed to do anything like that. And so we hold a lot of stuff in. And I know, like thinking of business meetings, when I've had to go in to have, some big conversation, all of this like pent up energy, it would have been so helpful to, just scream a little or like do some big movement just to like release some of that energy so that you can get focused, exactly as you're saying, and go and get shit done.
Yeah. So it's funny, like, I sort of think of myself as a coach in two ways. I'm a manager of a lot of people, and then I'm a CrossFit and weightlifting coach. But as a manager, it can be a lot more stressful sometimes. And one of the key things that I do as a manager is hire and fire people. And I've had to fire a couple people since joining my team, let a few people go. And as managers, we spend a lot of time thinking about how hard that is and the people we're letting go, right? If you're a good manager, you don't like firing. I once had someone say to me, you do it once, you do it 30 times, it's fine. Like every time I have to let someone go, it crushes me. I feel terrible all day. I can't get over it because you're changing someone's life for the worse. Yes, they made the choice or they, engaged in whatever action or they didn't perform, but I'm making the final choice to let them go. And before those meetings, like I have to get focused and I have to sort of get in the zone and get that sort of like negative energy out of me so I can be as supportive and positive of that, for them. Because it's like their time of need, not my time of need. So making my move, like saying, like getting amped up, it sounds ridiculous, but like, because you're going into a negative meeting, but then in the meeting, I can focus on that person and not, how
your
uncomfortable I am in the situation. And it's the same thing with coaching, right? Like you don't want to focus on the fact that you've had a tough day or, for me, it's not my full-time career. It's a second job that I have that I'm passionate about. But when I get in there at the end of the day to coach some classes or in the morning, no one cares if I had a tough day at work or whatever. You got to get in the zone. You got to help people achieve their goals. And so sort of shaking that fear out is exactly right. You sort of get in the zone.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot too about being a client-centered coach versus a coach-centered coach. Yet nobody cares about what you're bringing into the room. And we're there to serve them,
right? Exactly.
In whatever capacity that is.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about is really just another form of self-care, so that you can do your job most effectively, especially if your job is in service of others. It's interesting that we're having this conversation about peak performance because I just wrote this blog post inspired by the Daily Stoic, Ryan Holiday's Daily Stoic book, where he has a daily Stoic meditation for each day. And the one that I was inspired from to write is called Once is Enough, Once is Forever. And the idea being that if you've had some kind of peak performance moment, even just once, any time before in your life, and you can be the person that defines or characterizes what that means to you, but most of us, I would say, without doubt, we've had these good moments. The fact that it's happened once means that it's part of who we are and we can access it if we choose to. And this is a big thing in sports psychology as well, when you're trying to help people with imagery or even just confidence. The fact that you can practice accessing what was once successful, what was once ideal, and figure out, how to cultivate and then spend some time there internally is your bridge to those future events in which you can keep replicating those moments of success and peak performance moments, experiences, scenarios, etc.
So the seminar in sort of helping us figure out like what our move would be and get in the zone, Tony sort of asked a series of questions to help you identify some memories where you felt as if you were at your peak.
Yeah.
And the questions were something like, is the memory close or far away? And if it was a positive memory, everyone said, oh, it's very close. Is the memory black and white or in color? And we were asked to respond aloud. And if it was a positive memory, everyone said, oh, it's in color. And then he would say, is it a photograph or is it a movie? And if it were positive, everyone said it's a movie. Oh, so everyone has the same sort of framework for these peak performance moments. They are colorful, positive, close movie memories that we have of when we achieved our best. And then he would do the same thing. He would challenge us to think of negative moments. And all of those were far away, black and white, and stills. Because you remember the snapshot of something terrible happening.
Right.
It's far away from you.
Frozen. Right? Yeah.
And it's frozen in time. And so sort of learning how to identify with these moments, and when you think of something, be able to quickly use that heuristic to say, oh, it's far away, it's black and white, like that's the way I'm thinking about it. It's not great. Like, let's move past that. Was just a really positive thing. That's Tony, awesome. Like the Daily Stoic made me think of this. One of the things he's quite well known for is this priming process that he goes through every day. So every morning, Tony Robbins does the same thing. He used to take a dip into a very freezing cold plunge pool. Yeah. Now he has cryotherapy tanks in every single one of his houses. So he does cryotherapy. And then he does a breathing ritual. And I'll send you guys the link so you can share it with the podcast. He does a breathing ritual so you get his breath ready. And then he spends 2 minutes focusing on 3 moments of gratitude. For that day. So he primes himself to show and feel gratitude. And then he prays, either in a religious way or a spiritual way. He advocates for this sort of like just thinking and praying about, how will today go? Who can I think about? Who do I love? These sorts of things. I'm horrific at daily routines. Yeah. Beyond my core sort of routine of like, I get up very early, I go to bed at a certain time, like going to the, all the things that I sort of have locked in. I'm just not good at finding time for these things. Yeah. And one of the smartest things he said was that if you can't find 10 minutes for this practice, then you need it more than anyone else does. Ooh. So I failed some days, I've succeeded some days, but that was one of the things that really stuck with me. So if you can't find 10 minutes for this self-care practice, be it priming or mindfulness or meditation or 10 minutes of yoga in front of a TV screen, like whatever that is for you, that priming practice, that you desperately, desperately need it. And it's interesting to watch. It was interesting to watch him do it. He took the whole room through a Tony Robbins priming routine, and afterwards, everyone was so bubbly and so happy. You imagine, what if everyone did that, right? What if we could just get everyone to take 10 minutes a day for this self-care? It was just fascinating.
Does he? I like the little trampoline that he jumps on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we didn't see him backstage on the trampoline, but I know that he still does it. Yeah. Again, like I
got to get one of those.
So simple. 15 hours on stage. He doesn't drink water except for like every 2 hours. Takes a little sip. He doesn't feed himself. He doesn't take bathroom breaks, and he has these intensely emotional conversations with people throughout the entire seminar. And you never see him fade. You never see him sort of drop down. Now, it's a 4-day seminar. He can only physically do 2 of the days right now. His vocal cords are so beat up that he takes a day off in the middle. But man, like it is intense to watch him.
Huh.
Yeah. Well, and I think that really shows the power of having that daily routine self-care practice, which Jared and I talk about all the time. Because, people make a lot of time to do a lot of stuff that doesn't really help. Think about how much time you spend sitting on the couch or scrolling mindlessly through your phone. And if you were to direct that into an activity that would improve a number of things, how much better your day and your performance would be every single day.
Yeah, and it's just one thing, right? Like the focus on gratitude to me was sort of a big shift. So I think that I may not have felt as impacted by the seminar as some other folks did because I was already almost cripplingly self-aware going into it.
Yeah, right.
But the one thing that I've really been working on personally over the past couple of years is living a life of greater gratitude and of being more optimistic day to day. And when you decide to make that shift, it happens pretty quickly. you just sort of choose to like view little things as little things and to not let them bother you. And he advocated for that. And I think that like that bit of self-care, right? Spending a couple minutes thinking about like gratitude, whatever that means to you, can have a huge tectonic shift in the way you sort of look at your day. It reminded me of, I don't know if you guys have ever read or heard the David Foster Wallace speech, "This is Water."
Yeah. Oh, it's so good.
It's like one of my favorite pieces of writing of all time.
So great.
But like the idea that like, you have no idea what the person at the checkout line is going through.
Yeah.
You are just in your world, and you can either choose to experience it in this positive way or in this negative way. And everything Tony said kept sort of bringing me back to that. I'll like give you one more like plug for something that I read that sort of made me think this way, which was about 2 years ago, right before he took over the Late Show, Stephen Colbert did an interview in GQ. And Stephen Colbert had like a really tough life. When he was 9, I want to say, his father and 2 brothers died in a plane crash.
Wow.
And his mother, and you would never know this about him, right? And his mother sort of bundled up all of her sort of grief and projected a positive life for him and sort of helped him live and become this brilliant guy that the whole country knows. And the interview was supposed to be like a fun interview about Tonight Show and how fun it was going to be, and it ended up being this really like tearjerker. And at the end, he says this thing, which has sort of become like one of my life mottos. He says, "At every moment, we are volunteers." So what does that mean? Well, it means like you choose to be where you are right now, engaging in this moment right now, and you choose the sort of way you look at it, right? There are always outs, right? Whether that's changing jobs, moving across the country, whether that's in a very dark way, suicide, death, whatever they are, they're always, at every moment you're a volunteer. And Tony sort of harped on that idea that if you're going to be a volunteer, you might as well have some gratitude and be positive about it. Otherwise, it's just kind of too painful.
Wow, that's great. We are always volunteers. I need to find that interview.
I will send it to you.
Yeah, we'll link to it in the show notes for sure. Yeah, I think, you always have a choice for everything. I mean, exactly like you're saying. And I think sometimes, and I'm curious what Tony Robbins and what you've uncovered too about fear, which is something I've been thinking a lot about lately. And I think as creatives and entrepreneurs and, people out there in the world, especially if you're, sensitive, you have this choice, but the change you need to make can be very, very, very scary. And sometimes it's not enough to just be like, oh, well, don't be scared. Sometimes you do have to sit with that fear. So curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah. So it's really interesting. One of the first things he talked about in the seminar was fear. And the idea was fear is what stops us from moving forward. And that there are really just 2 fears, that we're not enough and that we won't be loved. And that those 2 fears sort of inform the way we process the world, right? So whether it's at work, we're not good enough, whatever, whether it's at home, we won't be loved, that sort of informs the way that we process the world. And that those fears are good, but that we need to find, because they help us identify things we need to work on, right? Things we can improve, what our needs are and how we can satisfy those needs. So if your biggest fear is that you won't be loved, what's making you feel that way, right? Is it that so many people at the seminar came in with concerns about their weight or concerns about their finances. So if it's a concern about your weight, right, then you won't be loved. Well, let's figure out, what's deeper about that? Like, why do you feel like you won't be loved because of your weight? What leads you to be overweight? What habits do you have that are leading you to be overweight? All these sort of deeper things. But then, let's also, split those apart. There's no reason that your weight should have an impact on whether you're going to be loved or not. They're totally separate things, right? It's the way that you are thinking about them. And so that fear can be motivating, but the fear also just helps us pick out things that we need to work on, right? When you're like, I used to have a boss that would say you got to sprint into the sticky points. When you have something that you're fearful of, you kind of got to sprint at it and let's knock it out. Walking on fire is a great example of that. There are plenty of people that were super freaked out, clearly had not done the Wikipedia research I had done.
Hey, come on, the guy's not going to hurt anybody.
Yeah, and they were really worried about walking on this fire. So they got pumped up, they got into a peak state, and they sprinted across one of their fears. And they just crushed it, right? They just decimated that fear. So the fears are it's really important, but it's important to know when it's real and when it's sort of just manufactured, because you're worried you're not enough, or you're worried you won't be loved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think making that determination of if it's manufactured, that's where the work comes in.
Totally. And that's like such a deeply personal process, I think, for individuals to sort of figure out, what's holding them back. But the more and more that you sprint into it, the easier and easier it gets, right? Like from personal experience, 6 months ago, I packed up my entire life and moved 2,500 miles across the country, right? Like that's a scary experience. But it's like not anymore, right? Like if you were like, hey, I need you to move to New York tomorrow, I could do it. Easy. Like not a big deal. I could pack up my life and move. Once you sort of begin to take down these fears and sort of knock out the little things, it all gets a lot easier, right? If you're someone who's afraid of, going to a bar to eat or eating dinner alone at a bar, start like slowly, like go and sit in a park alone, right? Mm-hmm. Like go to the gym alone, go to the movies alone. Literally, no one can see you.
Yeah,
and you sort of start slowly breaking down those fears. Like, what are you afraid of if you go to the movies alone? Well, that you're alone forever. You're not going to be loved, and like this is the kind of behavior that you're going to replicate for your entire life, right? That's like that's what's the fear is there. You're lonely, so like let's break that down. Go to the movies alone and like say hi to one person. That's fine. Like that person's probably not going to say that you're like accosting them. Like just wave and say hi to someone. And you slowly begin to do more and more things like that. And all of a sudden you're moving across the country alone, not knowing anyone, right? Like it's these little steps that we do to break down our fears and to just show how totally irrational they are.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of said two different things though. There's this sprinting aspect, but then it sounds like there's also this incremental type of, and so building on that, I'm curious what your thoughts are on the balance between the extremes and how when are there times to be more neutral? Because I think sometimes we get too caught up in this idea of like, get amped, and because I just feel like that's not sustainable, and perhaps sometimes it's too emotional and therefore too fluctuating and too susceptible to fluctuation versus having a little bit more of that neutral kind of calculation and ease.
So I think there's nothing that says that that neutral state is necessarily bad. I think that people get a bad rap for being neutral in their day-to-day, right? You should have to change what your neutral is. Right. So if you're someone that fluctuates a lot between like being super pouty and antisocial, pouty is a mean word, but we'll get over it. And like super amped and happy-go-lucky and Mr. Life of the Party, then those fluctuations, the extremities there, are going to end up hurting you in your day-to-day, right? Because no one knows how you're going to wake up on Tuesday morning when you have to go into a big meeting and present your quarterly business report. Right. And if you're down here, you're dead. Like, that's it. Like, you should quit. Like, or find a way to get back to the middle here and make that middle your everyday and slowly make that middle higher and higher and higher. Yeah. I think that being in that charged emotional state is challenging, but being at 75% of it isn't. And if you get to that 75% and then you begin to improve what your peak is, then it just gets easier and easier to constantly sort of be in a better zone. Right. Like the little things shouldn't bother you so much. So put yourself in a place where you're not as susceptible to them, right? Like there's so many bad drivers here in California. Like I do not understand how people are so bad at merging on the highway. But like, you know what? Like I let someone in front of me, and if someone else tries to squeeze in front of me, I let him in front of me. Why? Because like they're not personally attacking me. Like, they're a bad driver. Yeah. Right?
You're totally not from California.
They're not like trying to run me off the road. Like they're just not the best driver, and like they are going to try to get in, and maybe they have somewhere to go, or maybe they're just not that nice. But neither of those things matter to me. Right? Like, so you start slowly like letting those things not bother you so much, and you get to this much more balanced state every day. And that's when you can sort of sprint into those walls, right? Yeah. And I think that, the way you think about sprinting into those walls, like Tony Robbins says you need to create massive action. Massive is all relative, right? Yeah. So, we spoke about like moving across the country versus like going to a park alone. For different people, those might be different kinds of massive action, right? If you sit inside all day, don't talk to anyone, then going to a park alone is massive action. But slowly, it's all relative. So once you do that, what's the next thing? Going to a bar alone, maybe? That's massive action for you. And so, I don't think there's necessarily a distinction between the sprints and the massive action. It just kind of depends how you want to take it.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I think the defining characteristic is action, and that's where any amount of action is positive, because it means there's intentional effort, and we can all do a better job at being more compassionate to ourselves in rewarding and appreciating the action that we're taking, regardless of any metric that is being imposed on us from others or how we think it compares to the action someone else is taking. But just be okay and be moving in order to accomplish the act of doing and trying to create some momentum.
Yeah, and we talked about can you be in that emotional state all the time? Tony Robbins, the whole thing, they're big into neuroassociative conditioning, right? This idea you can train your brain to behave a certain way.
Yeah.
And they give you sort of these 5 steps. You need to know your outcome. You need to know your why. Take massive action, track your progress, and then change your approach. And that's all we've been talking about the past few minutes, right? Is know what you want, know what you're trying to get to, know why you want to get there. Take massive action, whether that's trying to be in a better mood every day, right? Whether that's priming, whether that's moving across the country, whether that's asking someone out on a date, or whether that's buying a gym membership, and track your progress, right? In whatever sort of manageable way you can track your progress. Are you happier at the end of the day? Do you feel better? And then change your approach. Start from a new baseline, right? Try something new. It's sort of all, it's a lifelong process, but you have to start somewhere, right? And that's knowing what you want to get and then jumping at it.
Yeah, action. If there's one thing you learn, is to take action. And I have heard Tony Robbins in other interviews talk about that massive action. And for myself, then, like Jared was saying, thinking of the metrics, I'm like, oh, well, this doesn't really count. It's not big enough, or it's not great enough, or extreme enough. But every little thing compounds and adds up to then get you where you want to go. And if you don't have that self-reflection built in, how are you going to know?
Right.
If you're not looking back and seeing what's up, and whether that's, on a daily basis or, personally, I like to do it on a monthly basis, but I'm constantly, writing things down so that I can look back over the month, but oh, that was so cool. Look at what we did this month, Self.
Yeah.
That reflection component is very, very, very important as well.
One of my favorite sayings, I'm not sure where I picked it up, is that everyone's problems mean the world to them, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's problems, someone's self-esteem problems are to them the same as someone's cancer diagnosis, right? Now, of course, in our world, we view them differently, but they are your entire world. And so a nice, easy framework you can apply to helping solve those problems or to finding solutions for those problems, no matter what they are, is something like this, outcomes, reasons, massive action, progress, and then change. Just figure it out and just work your way through it. And it makes it so easy to say, yes, this is my problem, but we're going to fix it. And if you don't take action on it, then it's your cross to bear. You're going to suffer through it forever, right? You're going to sit there and be sad. Got to find a way to take action.
Yeah.
I'm really big on be able to create justification for complaining.
Yep.
So it's if you're not taking action in any way, you have no right to bitch about your circumstances, Mm-hmm. and we all want to bitch about it and vent. So it's create reason to actually be worthy of complaint and frustration. It's if I'm upset that I don't have a girlfriend and I'm not going on dates, and I haven't done anything about it, that's not fair. But if I'm at least I have an online profile and I'm, sending out messages every once in a while, then at least now I can be why is nobody responding? This is crap,
Right.
you know? So it's continuing to move in that direction of creating justification or creating a reason to be frustrated because there's movement on your part. There's something that you are actively doing.
And by the way, like I might suggest that if your like frustration is like, why am I not going on dates or why is no one responding? There's a lot of other stuff we can talk about there that's going to make you feel a lot better about the fact that no one's responding, right? Like,
yeah,
if you're reaching out to people in business, in your personal life or whatever, to try and be close to them, and they're not responding, and that crushes you, we got some stuff to talk about, right?
Yeah,
because like you should be secure enough, and that like that random email to someone to try to get help or to talk about something, it's not the end of the world to you whether they respond or not. The cold email or the cold call or the cold hello should only give you a positive. It should never be a negative, right? Yeah. Unless someone like responds back like, no, asshole, like leave me alone. Like, all right, cool, sorry, that's my bad. But like up until then, like you're just asking for more knowledge, right? You're just asking someone, to be interested or to give you 5 minutes. If they're not going to do that, then again, like they probably need to do it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's important to make those differentiations, and then also have the ability to assess the symptoms that are potentially reflective of greater underlying causes. Why am I so upset that I didn't receive a response, or why was I so nervous about reaching out in the first place? Just trying to get more clarification on that can be really helpful.
Yeah. It's all about finding a way to stay positive in those situations, and all about like realizing that it's not you, it's them, and that's okay, right? Mm-hmm. Like there are plenty of other people to reach out to or to learn from or to get to know. And if you feel like you're getting the same response over and over, it's probably time to look internally and then say, oh, maybe it is me. What can I work on here? How can I become more confident? How can I become happier? How can I be filled with more gratitude every day?
Yeah. Awesome.
So your, just out of curiosity, is your mental either preparation or reflection from the day, is this something that you do totally mentally, or do you have like a journal or?
Yeah, so I use the 5-minute journal. Which I'm pretty big into. I can send a link out about that. And it sort of helps you prime yourself for the day. You list some things that you want to focus on for that day, that you want to be successful in, and then you reflect at night and look at how you did. It sits on my nightstand. And again, like I don't do it every night. I try to do it as frequently as possible, and just try to sort of process my day that way. I'm also pretty big on, as you guys, as I'm sort of showing you guys, like taking notes and having Post-its. And I somehow all the computers in my office have these like pads of Post-its in it. And so I find myself with Post-its in my pocket at the end of the day with like little thoughts that I've had, things that I want to hold on to, things that I think are sort of important notes. Whether that's like a training video that I saw that I want to like ask, Jared a question about, or whether it's, something I want to go read. I'm pretty big on that and just sort of trying to save as much intelligence as possible that way. And so at the end of the day, I can sort of look through my pockets, these notes that I have, and look and sort of jot down in my journal my reflections on the day, and then use these notes to inform the next day, right? Like what have I learned from external sources that can then benefit me moving forward?
Save some intelligence. I like that.
Yeah, like there's just so much out there. And a lot of our success, particularly in my world, right, where I'm a consultant and a business person and a lawyer, the more intelligence that I can have easily accessible, the more successful I'm going to be.
Yeah,
and
that
so
accessibility. Key.
Right, so I try to read as much as possible. I take notes on everything that I read. There's some awesome methods out there for learning how to take notes in the margins of your books. And I take notes and I process things, and I'll write up little summaries for myself. And I'll send people recommendations, because the act of typing out why you recommend it to someone is so positive. And just keep that stuff really accessible. And then, do the same thing when I get sent stuff. At the end of the day, when I'm processing my notes for the day, I'm like, oh, I should read this, or I should listen to this, or watch this.
Yeah, it's great stuff. I like the idea of trying to accumulate it as it's kind of coming at you, and then filter it later on, or have some system there. It's something I've been working on, because there's so much out there. Especially, it's like, man, I'm on so many email subscription lists too. To good content, right? Like coaches with their own practices and blogs and links to this, but it can sometimes be drowning when I'm just trying to get through my email for the things that I have to act on immediately, because I'm having to sort through the other stuff. But somehow creating a system that allows you to, file and then address later, or even just say like, hey, I can't get to everything, I'm deleting this, and I have identified what's more of the priority that is going to be a part of that intellectual and even emotional accumulation for the day, that is still part of that process.
And a lot of that is just about like, now we're going to move into like a life hacks little blurb, but like a lot of it's just streamlining your life, right? Like how much content do you need? Like what tools you use, what tools are out there? Like I use Pocket for all my articles. So I save things to Pocket, and like it's the best thing in the world. I don't read articles during the workday anymore. I just save them all and read them at the end of the day. I have a couple like email filters that I use. I've made a pretty comprehensive filter for my work email, so I only see things that I really need to see. Yeah, it's judged by priority. There's just too much noise.
Yeah, it's
right?
crazy.
And when you have goals that are both professional and personal, the noise can really make it hard to get through the day. I know plenty of people that get to work at 6 in the morning and leave at 7 at night and just feel like they're trying to accomplish a Sisyphean feat, and every day they just get rolled back down the hill.
Right.
And I almost never feel that way, because I knock out a couple things a day that like feel good. And I'm by no means an expert at this, but like I just had some good coaches and some good mentors and read some good stuff, and you sort of make it happen.
That's a perfect segue into our rapid fire. Look how rapidly I did that.
Yeah.
Sam, describe your personal experience with coaches and mentors and how they have shaped your approach.
Yeah. So I'm very fortunate. I gotta say my two most important mentors are my parents. Both of my parents are really, really bright folks who are incredibly hardworking and just they talk about Sisyphean feats, like pushing the rock up the hill and getting rolled down every night. Neither of them seem to get discouraged when the rock rolls a little bit, when it gets a little bit challenging. I also had a mentor in my first job when I was in college. I worked full-time at a digital marketing firm, iStrategy Labs. It's an awesome firm in DC. And I had a mentor, DJ Saul, who was my boss there for a couple of years. And he taught me how to be social and business-like at the same time, and how to really show compassion for the people that you work with. Everything is a business exchange in business, but everything can also be personal. It can also be positive. And I think that lesson has gotten me to where I am. And then Jared, obviously you've been, we had a coach-athlete relationship for a couple of years now. And I think that one important thing about that has been realizing that you can be coached by someone that you are friends with, and you can sort of separate the buckets there, and everything can work just fine. So your mentors, your coaches, don't need to be people on different planes than you, right? You surround yourself with people who are experts in their field or burgeoning experts in their fields. And this doesn't mean like they can't be the people that you talk to about other things. And that concept has really helped me in my day-to-day. There are plenty of people that quote unquote work for me in my current job that are just smarter than I am on certain subject matters. And when I have a question, I go to them to get coached and to get mentored. And we work it out, and there's no sort of pretense there. We're just here to work.
Yeah, so getting that ego out of there. And it's a great point about just being able to take a step back and see what's in your immediate circle that can be of use. So often I'm kind of like, oh, I need to get that book, or I go to a bookstore and I'm inspired, but I'm also overwhelmed because there's so much to read. But then it's like, how many books are on my shelf that I haven't really spent enough time with? So again, that point of like, it doesn't have to be the next thing out there. There's probably plenty in your proximity that you're not taking as much advantage of. And I totally agree. I mean, it's been a real pleasure to coach one of my best friends and know just how seamless that has been, and that there can be kind of these two separate parts of our relationship, and they can sort of mingle organically, or they can be separate, and that doesn't have to be this weird friction.
And the only other thing I'd say is, and this may sound cheesy, is that books are some of the best sort of coaches and mentors that you can have. Like reading unlocks worlds that you can only imagine of, and you will never actually experience. And I find that reading the autobiographies and biographies of some of like our country's and the world's great leaders, the sort of best way to figure out what your challenges are and how to face them. I'm reading a good, really fantastic Winston Churchill biography right now about Churchill as a soldier. And it's like a totally different perspective on this guy. I just finished reading Hamilton. Just people who we think we know so much about, but who are really had some challenging experiences, and sort of when my life is a fair bit easier than Hamilton's life was. Hamilton was an orphaned immigrant who came to the New World. I'm going to be okay. Yeah. What lessons can I pull from that? So books make great coaches too, if you can reflect on what you're reading.
The perspective is empowering.
Yeah.
All right. Before moving on to the next rapid fire, which is now no longer that rapid, I'm curious. As we both spent 8 and 9 years at Greenwood's overnight camp. And I'm curious if you have any memories or things related to your camp experience that inform yourself as a coach, as a teacher, anything that sticks out that you call upon, or that, when you reflect, has had a sustaining impact in your approach.
Yeah. So camp forced me to be social at a time where I wasn't very good at that. It sort of forced me to grow into sort of working with large, disparate groups of people, and to commanding the attention of an audience. Particularly, as we got more senior on the staff, we were often put in positions where you had to get in front of large groups of people and get them to do something, get them to buy into something, right? Whether that was a challenge or whether that was, a color date, whatever that was, you had to get them to buy in. And the process for that could have been quite long-winded, and there could have been a lot of build-up to it. Or it could have been like, hey, Sam, we need you to go do this now. Hey, Jared, we need you to go do this now. And as a coach, you're often put in sort of unexpected situations, right? You don't have enough equipment for the workout in the class. Okay, you got to scale. You got to move this quickly. You got to figure out what to do next. And you need to be able to command the attention of a room that maybe just starting to get slightly displeased with the way things are going. Right? I remember the first time coaching in my new gym, the Lane Fitness here in San Francisco. We had just moved into a new space. The day I started coaching here was the day we moved into our new space. And the rig wasn't yet bolted to the ground. And our programming for the day, I believe it called for push press. And so we didn't have our portable racks yet. So we ended up having to switch things up, right? And so we changed the programming a little bit, went to a much lighter push press, and we ended up power cleaning for the first rep. And so how do you command an audience to hey, sorry things aren't going the way you want it to go. Let's swap it around a little bit. Right. That's the kind of stuff you learn to do at camp, because 40 staff members trying to corral 250 kids between the ages of 8 and 14 is not the easiest thing in the world. And everyone comes with their own sort of baggage, if you will. So how do you handle that? And today it's the same thing. It's a smaller, it's only an hour. People come in with the way they felt during the day. And it's my job to sort of corral that, get them to accomplish a task.
Definitely. What element, characteristic, or personality trait do you bring to coaching, mentoring, or leading that people would least expect or may see as odd?
That I've been there. I think a lot of coaches, natural leaders, people assume are natural leaders. People assume sort of, particularly with coaches, people assume like they've always been athletic, always been talented, always been sort of good at these things. And those that know me when I was younger know that is just entirely untrue. Like I was a poor athlete. I was not great socially. I was pretty overweight for a while. And when you look at a coach and who can say like, hey, I've been where you are, right? Like I couldn't run. I couldn't squat, right? And particularly when you're a coach in a new environment and you come in and you're one of the best athletes in the gym, people just sort of assume that like he's always been that, he must have played college football or he must have done this or that. I'm like, nah, dude, like I drank a lot of beer in college.
Yeah.
I wasn't good at anything. I wasn't good at it. Like I made a change.
Right.
And you can make a change too. So being able to show people that you've been there and relate to them, whether it's you've literally been where they are right now, like overweight, trying to get fit, or in a dead-end job trying to move forward in their career, or whether it's just something that's sort of relative, like they lost a parent and like you've had a long fight with a parent. Things that are just sort of relative. Being able to say that you've been there and ask them questions and sort of get to the root of the situation and help is really powerful.
That's awesome. What is your biggest coaching or teaching pet peeve?
There is, I think that sometimes, particularly in the kinds of gyms that some of us operate in, there become a group of members that think they are above the law. That like they can talk during instruction, that they don't need to do the last night I was coaching, we did DT, CrossFit workout, 12, 9, 6, deadlifts, hang power cleans, and push jerks. And I had like a really long warm-up built for that because that's a challenging workout on the body. We really need to warm up all those modalities to be able to do it. And I had a couple members that just like decided not to participate in that warm-up. And that's my biggest pet peeve. Yeah. Because there are two things. It's incredibly disrespectful to me, but like I don't really give a shit about that, right? Like I'm here to coach, and like if you don't want to be coached, that's fine. But it's incredibly disrespectful to the rest of the members, exactly, who are there to get an experience and to learn. And there are plenty of there are plenty of other gym facilities. There are plenty of other fitness facilities. I'm not arguing that CrossFit is the best fitness facility in the world for everyone. There are plenty of other ways to get fit. But part of what we do is get fit together in a community, right? Be it in weightlifting classes, powerlifting classes, or in the CrossFit classes. And I'm there to help make sure that you're doing it in a safe way. If you're going to interrupt, if it's just you and me and you don't give a shit, that's fine. Right. But if it's 10 people and me and you're interrupting, that's my biggest pet peeve. It's just a total lack of respect for the process.
Yeah, you're undercutting the experience as a whole. These kids these days.
All
right, lastly, what does it mean to practice what you preach? What does that mean to you?
It's getting up every morning and trying to sort of have the warmest disposition possible, which I think is incredibly challenging, and to be willing to take a second and pause and process. So frequently we're asked to respond rapidly to something that does not require a rapid response. And I truly believe that there are times where it's really important to say, hey, I don't know, I need a second. To me, that's the most important thing, to be able to say, hey, I don't know, I need a second, and then ask the right questions to get to the desired solution.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a big one to practice. I appreciate that. It's one of those important reminders, and especially, I think it's another one of these things that if the more of us can do and act as role models of that kind of behavior, then we can remove some of the social anxiety or awkwardness that we feel when pausing or taking an extra moment where we feel like we shouldn't. And, this is weird. Somebody's waiting for a response when really, no, it's just us being more reflective and actually genuine in how we're trying to answer and make the best of a situation.
It's always fair game to say, I don't know, let me get back to you. Yeah. Unless your house is burning down or like someone's been shot, it's always fair game to say, hey, I need 5 minutes, let me get back to you. And when I learned that it was okay to do that, it instantly made me more successful in business, but also just like lowered my stress levels drastically. Mm-hmm. Everything is a fire drill. I got an email this weekend. It actually was a fire drill. Like it was something that urgently needed a response. And it said in the subject line, fire drill. And I laughed at it. Like that was truly a fire drill, right? Like that I was aware that it needed a rapid response. If it doesn't say fire drill on the subject line, or if your brain doesn't instantly think like, oh my God, the office is burning down, how do I respond? It's probably not. Take a second, grab a pad of Post-its, sketch out some thoughts, and then attack it, right? One by one, sort of work your way through it. It's just such a better way to live.
Prioritize and execute.
Yes.
There you go. There you go.
Well, Sam, thank you so much. This has really been awesome. It's a pleasure
thank you.
to hear all
Thanks,
wonderful insight and get a little behind the scenes for those of us that aren't as lucky to have jobs that pay for Tony Robbins extravaganzas. Any final thoughts from you, Sam?
No, this has been fantastic. Yeah, thanks for taking the time to chat. And I'll send you guys sort of a list of the links to things we talked about. You guys can put them in the show notes. There's some really easy ways to show more gratitude every day, and also just to sort of eliminate some of the negativity. And the Tony Robbins seminar really focused on that, but there are a lot of ways that are much less expensive.
Yeah.
Where you can accomplish that. And for me, it was really beneficial to have done all those things before I went to the seminar. Because the seminar, was only that much more powerful then. As we said, like if you work your way up to 75%, then you can create a new 100%.
Yeah, awesome. And where can people find more about you, your coaching schedule, stay connected?
Yeah, so they can find me on LinkedIn is the best place to find me. And they can get all my contact information on there. I do not have a personal coaching website right now. I coach at Lane Fitness CrossFit in San Francisco, and I am there literally every day for many hours. So they will find me there. I'm the guy with the great beard.
Yes.
True story.
Those that can't see me.
Both these guys have great beard. Rockin' Movember, so hard.
Yeah, it's all year round.
All year round.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Sam. I know I have gotten some great insights of, little ways to make incremental steps to do, massive action and change. So thank you again for sharing your brain and insight with us. And if you have any questions for those listeners, again, you can go check out the show notes at behindthepodiumpodcast.com.
Until next time, thank you.
Woohoo!
Hey guys, thanks for listening to Behind the Podium, Unveiling the Coach. If you have enjoyed what you listened to, head over to iTunes and leave us a review. More information on each episode and the podcast in general can be found at behindthepodiumpodcast.com. We'll catch you next time.